back again. First off, I want to say thank you so much for watching my first 2 videos. I cannot believe the response I got in just a little over a week. Also, I want to say thank you for all the great comments, the kind words, the loving support everyone has given me. I have never seen so much love on the internet. Usually it's the opposite. But thank you so much again. So I would like to make another video. Now I'm going to make a little shorter one this time. I'm going to just focus in on the shutting that's happened in my life since we left. And I'm going to go back again to that February 23rd day when I woke up during that elders meeting. I might overlap a little bit from my last video, but just bear with me. So it was February 23rd, 2016. During the elders meeting, I woke up and I realized that I had to get out. And my wife hadn't been to a meeting in almost 3 months. So I came home that Tuesday night and I told her, and we did not sleep at all. We probably were up till 5 or 6 in the morning talking. And I said to her, you know, when we leave, we're going to be shunned. And she's like, I know. So what are we going to do? I'm like, I don't know. So we decided to then and there to start to fade and never to come back. So every Sunday, you know, I was at the meetings. I never missed a meeting. If I was on vacation, I'd still go to their meetings. Well, I wrote a letter on Saturday before our quarterly elders meeting, told them I wasn't qualified to serve, but that's about it. I really didn't mention anything else was going to happen. So the next day, Sunday, my wife said, let's go to Annapolis for the day with the kids. Let's just go away, have a fun day. So we went to Annapolis, Maryland for the day. And we're trying to plan it out because I am lost. I have no idea what to do. And I'm asking her, what about the kids? Who can they date? What's going to happen to them? Because in my mind, they can only date Jehovah's Witnesses. So we talked about it. Then she brought up about holidays. And I'm like, we're not celebrating holidays. And then she took me aside and said, we are. And you can't boss me around. And it dawned on me that even though I was never a vindictive or mean or domineering husband, she was 100% correct that I did not have the right to boss her around or tell her what to live her life. So we decided that, you know, we're never to go back again. She told me what her goals were. She says, I want to go to college. I want to get a degree. I said, okay, we'll do that. But she had a plan. I was totally lost. Now, at the time, I was living in York County, Pennsylvania, which is on the Maryland border. My parents were an hour and a half north of us. My sister was at Wallkill. My brother lived in Indiana. Her parents had moved to Arizona, and her brother lived past Scranton. So I had aunts and uncles and I had cousins that were in our neighboring congregations, but we didn't have any immediate family within an hour and a half. So we just didn't go to meetings. And, you know, we didn't tell my family. So a month later happened, and the memorial came up. And I got the text messages, the calls from the local congregation, but we ignored them. You know, we're not going to do anything about it. So my sister and my mom texted me after the memorial, and they're like, how many was at the meeting? Who gave your talk? Well, I knew who gave the talk, so I could text back, you know, this brother. And when I said, I didn't get the count, oh, you know, I just missed it. Or there's never a bad meeting, never a bad one. So I wasn't lying, but I wasn't telling the truth. And I knew eventually that reports would get to my parents, and I felt dishonest. So the end of March, right after the memorial, that weekend, I wrote a letter to my brother, my sister, my mom and dad, outlining the grievances, the problems I had with the organization, and why were you leaving? And I still wanted to have them in my life. I did not want them to shun them. I was not mad at them, but I'm just laying it out there. Now, in between here, I had turned 39. I turned 39 March 2nd, so about a week after I woke up. But of course, I couldn't celebrate my birthday. I wasn't ready for that. Then my wife, during that Annapolis meeting, that Annapolis trip, she decided that she had family who were not Jehovah's Witnesses, because only her parents came in the late 70s. Her aunts and uncles and her cousins were not Jehovah's Witnesses. So she had a group of friends. And she's like, look, I want to get to know my cousins. My wife's a year older than I am, so she was about 40 at this time. And she's like, I want to know my cousins. I want to know my aunts and uncles. And I said, I'm not going to have any problem with you doing that. So she says, Easter's coming up, and we're going to my family's house for Easter. And I said, okay. I said, we'll do that. But I said, I don't want to participate. I'll go, But I didn't want to paint any Easter eggs or anything else like that. Because in my mind, you know, I still thought like lightning bolts were going to happen to me. So we progressed. And then I wrote the letter and I heard no response. Nothing from my sister, nothing from my brother, nothing from my dad. My mom calls me and she starts to scream at me, yell at me. She's very, very upset. And I'm trying to talk her. And during these 5 to 6 weeks, I just devoured every single thing I could about Jehovah's Witnesses. For the first 38 years of my life, I never searched Jehovah's Witnesses on the internet. And now I'm looking at every single thing I can find. Everything. And I was saving stuff on my phone, my laptop. And I was going at my mom, what about this? What about this? What about this? And it didn't matter what I said. I brought up about, you know, Rutherford and saying that women would become men or black people are cursed and they become white and all the crazy things that Rutherford said, and she didn't care. Brought up in 1975 and she's like, no, how dare you? I was alive in 1975. These things didn't happen, which she lied. So she cut me off. The sad thing is about my dad. Now remember, my dad had been an elder since 1972. Nobody in the organization has been an elder longer than my dad, because when the elder arrangement came in, he was appointed an elder. He never even called. He never even texted. He never stopped at my house. It was only a little over an hour drive, hour and a half. Not one time did my dad ever make an effort to check on his son. So what makes me sad about that is how many times did you and I go to knotted homes over and over again? How many times did we place a set of magazines? We might have went back 10, 15, 20 times to that house and they never answered, but we still kept trying because we thought we were going to save their lives. So why wouldn't my dad make an effort? Never even made a chance. My coordinator texted me a few times, never called me. The one elder I think was assigned with a body to check on us. He knocked at our door a couple times. And remember, now we lived a half mile from a Kingdom Hall, but we weren't going there anymore. We had been asked to go to help another congregation. So every day, if you were out in service, if you were there for whatever meetings, you had to go by our house, really to go to the Kingdom Hall. So witnesses would always do drive-bys, always slow down, look at us. The witnesses from my old congregation, Red Line, would actually stop at our house way more than the newer congregation. So my wife said, I want to move. I want to get out of this house. We'd been living there for 15 years, too many memories. And she had gotten a job. She's working full-time for the first time in our marriage life after almost 20 years of being married. She's working full-time, but she was driving about over an hour past Harrisburg. So we found a place to lease, a condo to lease, halfway between my work and her work. It would be still in the same county, but it would be 45 minutes north, a new area. And the beautiful thing about the reason why we picked this area is because the Lewisberry congregation had just been dissolved. There was no congregation in the area. So we knew that people would probably not work in this area because they would have to come from other territories. So April of 2016, we put our house on the market, and we just leased a condo, and we moved out of our house, got away. I think because of that, the elders never came to disfellowship us. They never tried to disfellowship us. They never really called us for a meeting. They just gave up on us. They were just, I guess, too lazy, too old to really care. So then after that, we just started living our life. So my parents, of course, started shutting us. My aunts and uncles, cousins never contacted me. Not even once did they even try to contact me. None of them contacted me. All my friends growing up, every single one. I lost all my friends. So at first my brother response was very angry at me. He called me up and he yelled at me. He said I ruined the family. I'm hurting the family. Don't you care about mom and dad? And then he went radio silent. Didn't hear one word from him. My dad had 5 younger brothers and sisters. All of them were married. All of them were witnesses. All of them shunned me. All 13 of my cousins who were Jehovah's Witnesses shunned me. Every family friend I had growing up, every close friend, completely cut me off. So it came as a shock that I was at Home Depot in April of 2016, and my brother texted me after not talking to me for about a month. And he says, "Can I call you?" And I'm like, "Sure, go ahead, call me." And he said, "You were right. Everything he said in that letter was right." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, I never researched Jehovah's Witnesses until you sent me that letter. And then I looked those things up the first time, and everything is 100% correct. I'm done also." And that just warmed my heart. Here now my brother is out. So, again, because my brother had been shunned for 5 years, he was disfellowshipped. I had shunned him. I only saw him one time in those 5 years, and that was at a wedding. And I gave him a hug, and I told him I loved him, and I told him, "Please come back." I towed the company line. But on the other hand, the weird thing is that my parents kind of still had contact with him. Not a lot, because my dad was an elder, but they once in a while would call him or write him a letter or drive to Philadelphia to visit his elders and stop and see him. So in my parents' minds, they were justifying it. They were trying to help him. They weren't really communicating with them, but they still had contact with them. The reason why I bring this up is that after that last phone call with my mother, I lost all contact with them. They never reached out. They never tried. They never wrote a letter. They acted like I was dead. Now, why do I say that? Because June of 2016, my parents were going to have a family reunion at their house. My aunt and uncle were in as missionaries from Africa, and everybody was going to be there. So my brother, even though he was out, he didn't tell my parents. And him and his wife came in from Indiana. And at that family meetup, my aunt and uncle and my sister both said, "We have to close ranks. We have to stay together. We have to act like they're dead." Yes, they actually had a mock funeral for us at that family get-together. Eventually, my brother did tell our parents, and again, of course, he was shunned too. It got so bad with my mom that I had got her an iPhone. I bought iPads for both my mom and my dad. I showed them how to use them. I downloaded the Watchtower library on them, and they just loved them. So after got presents for my parents, then I bought my mom an iPhone, and I, showed her how to use it. Well, she mailed it back to me. She wanted me to be on the same cell phone plan as me, which is fine. I sold it on eBay. So let's talk about my wife's family. Now, her brother was also disfellowshipped for about a year, and her dad was not in Arizona at this time. He was still living in Pennsylvania. But her dad did not cut any association out with her family, with his son. Her dad, my wife's dad, still talked to his son all the time. They lived in the same lake, just a few blocks away from each other. So why do I bring this up, though? Because Jehovah's Witnesses are very strange when it comes to shunning. Everybody acts differently. Everybody does it a little differently. But I've noticed it more and more that people who get disfellowship for sins but are still believers, they allow to have contact with. But once that person mentions they're no longer believers, immediately cut off. And I even gave my father-in-law a hard time about contacting his son. He just ripped me and yelled at me and told me I had no place. I was 100% in the wrong. I said, "Okay, I am sorry, Brad." But yet, did Brad or Debbie, my in-laws, did they have any contact with us? No. Well, the first time I told my wife to write a letter, she wrote a letter to her dad. Her dad thought it was some kind of joke or something, and then he found out it was true. He called me up and started screaming at me. Her mom never contacted me, never even bothered to attempt to contact me. Her dad was furious at me, and I'm trying to defend myself. I said, "Look, Brad, your daughter started this. I never would have left Jehovah's Witnesses if it wasn't for your wife." Well, you know what he said to me? He said, "That is your fault. You were the head of the household. You were supposed to keep her in line. It's your fault that she looked in those apostate websites." Yes, he blamed everything on me. He is so chauvinist that in his mind, a man could not have a single thought. A woman could not have any thought in her head. It has to be directed by a man, excuse me. And I said, "Look, she's an adult. She's smarter than I am. She figured it out before I did." And he did not like that at all. So the next year they came to visit us they came to visit their family in Pennsylvania. And he's like, I want to meet the kids, and I want to meet with my wife, but I don't want Martin. I don't want myself in there. So my wife, she laid it down. She's like, you can associate with us, but you cannot pick and choose, either all four of us or none of us. And my in-laws picked none of us, and they'll have no contact with us because of that. Now, it's not as big as a deal. They are in Arizona, but we've been out there 3 times. We've had great times visiting them. They want nothing to do with us. Now, how else has shunning affected me in the last 2.5+ years? Well, I was at Starbucks when one of my friends, who I've known for a long time, really close friend with, his daughter works at Starbucks, and I've known her since she was little. So I walked in, and I said, hey, how are you doing? She saw me and ran to the back. She would not even serve me at a Starbucks. Yes, that's how crazy shunning is among Jehovah's Witnesses. Interestingly, though, that my mom's 2 brothers left the Watchtower back in the 60s. So she was the youngest of 3 kids. And her 2 brothers left in 68 and 69. Now, I had no contact with her 2 uncles, my 2 uncles, her brothers, my whole life. In 1982, I was at my grandma's house, and my one uncle stopped in to say hi to his mom, and I saw him. Only time in my entire life did I ever see him. My other uncle did get reinstated in the early 80s, and I had a little bit of association with him, but then in 1983 or 4, he was disfellowshipped, never came back for the second time. And then in 1989, my grandma was getting heart surgery, and he came to visit the hospital, and I saw him in 1889. So since almost 30 years, no contact with my mom's 2 brothers. When I was like 12 or 13, I was helping my grandmother, and she's like, you should write a letter to your uncles, just say who you are. Because again, in her mind, even though she was a good Jehovah's Witness, my grandmother never shunned her kids, her 2 sons. So I wrote a letter to my uncles, just on the computer. I printed it out. My mom saw it. She ripped it up into a million pieces and threw it in my face and said, don't you ever. Now, why do I bring this up? Well, because since I've left, I've gotten in contact with those uncles. I've met them many times. I learned I have a cousin I never knew about. Well, I'll talk more about him in another video. But I found out that my mom has been emailing both of my uncles off and on for 20 years. So she's been emailing them. And it's very strange. So in her mind, it's okay to email her 2 brothers who left 50 years ago, and one came back and got this fellowship 35 years ago, but it's not okay to talk to her own son who has done nothing wrong besides not want to be part of a book publishing corporation. So that's another thing that's affected me since then, that again, Jehovah's Witnesses do not make sense. And I can remember being out in service as a teenager and talking to another elder and a circuit overseer and being yelled at by this one point. I said, because I saw it in action, I could not understand it. I have 2 friends. I had friends. And both of them, it's just a coincidence. They're both Jehovah's Witnesses, and their names are Leah and Seth, and they're both Leah and Seth, but they're not related or anything. Well, in both cases, the one Seth was disfellowshipped, and his parents had no contact with him for immorality. Leah, his sister, stayed faithful. Another Seth never got baptized, never became a witness. He had sex as a teenager. Now, he married that woman, they have kids, and he has a great job, great family, and guess what? His dad, elder, his sister, pioneer, have all the communication, all the family. And I even brought that up to a circuit overseer as a teenager, before I was even a servant. And I'm like, this does not make any sense. How come you could have 2 people both do the same exact thing, and one that you could have complete contact with, the other one you act like they're dead? Why is that? The circuit overseer did not like that question at all. He did not answer it. He acted like a politician, totally ignored me. So that has really affected our lives. Because in my mind, I have not done anything wrong besides grow facial hair. I have played some mature games I would never play before. I've watched R-rated movies I've never watched before, but I've done nothing crazy since I left. I don't go out and do drugs. I don't go out drink. I don't go out and I don't go out and cheat on my wife. But yet, in their mind, I am worse than anything else. And it's also interesting that in my congregation growing up, one of my friends' younger brother never became baptized, so of course his family could still have contact with him. And he was at a get-together, witness get-together, and he saw my parents. And my parents made up stories about us. And I've heard from other people saying, well, reason why Martin and Jen left is because Martin cheated on Jen, or Jen cheated on Martin, or whatever, vice versa. But they have to lie to make up stories to excuse why we left. They can't accept the real thing, that it's just all bullshit. It doesn't make sense. So that's how some of the things that shunning has affected us. Now, my kids were 13 and 14 when we left. Now they're 16 and 17, but they were 13 and 14. And their grandmother has never texted them, called them. My mom or my wife's mom. No contact whatsoever. Now, again, if this was the truth, if this is 100% correct, why aren't the grandfathers trying to save their grandkids? Because they really don't care. They really don't love them. They were just a status symbol. They were something to say, look, my granddaughter's pioneering at 14. Look, my grandson's giving a talk. That's all they really cared. They didn't really love them. It was conditional love. So all in all, things are much better than they were before. Even though I lost my mom and dad, even though I lost my sister, I've gained a lot of friends. I've gained a lot of family. And life is not that bad. Yes, when Watchtower likes to pretend that shunning really isn't that bad, or really not that severe, just look at my case. Look at the case of thousands of other people, millions of people who are being punished by this evil corporation. I would love to help as many people as possible. But remember, there are millions of people in this organization who are too scared to lose their mom or their dad or their sister. It's tough. And that's the difference between a cult and a religion. A religion you can leave, no consequences. A cult, they have too many strings attached. Luckily, I never worked for a witness. I didn't lose my job, didn't lose my place where I lived, but I've lost a lot of other things. But again, I would do it in a heartbeat. I am so much happier now than ever before. In my next video, I'm going to talk about how things have improved in my life in the past 2.5 years. And if you keep liking these videos, I'll try to keep making more. I'm not a great speaker, I'm not eloquent in my talking, but I like to breach more things. I like to give you a behind the scenes look at what elder meetings really went on, how the corporation worked, having an uncle as a director of the organization. I also like to make future videos upon Bethel itself, because I've known hundreds of Bethelites over the years. I've been in Brooklyn, Wallkill, all these facilities multiple times. So I have a little bit of ins. My dad served there, 2 of my uncles were there, my aunt was there, my sister was there for 20 years, lots of my friends. So again, thank you for watching. And I have listened to your comments and seen them, and I'm going to try to talk louder. I need to buy a microphone so you can hear me better. And again, thank you for watching. And again,